Greetings, everyone. Welcome to your affirming interfaith community, Swedenborgian community online. We are happy to connect with you, and I am greatly pleased and joyful about our guest today, Michael Sabani. Greetings, Michael.
Hey, Corey, thank you. So happy to be a part of this.
Well, thank you for coming on, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are joining us as kind of an online community member, or at least a participant. And I was really inspired by you reaching out and some of our communication in the past. And it's so great that you agreed to come on and share part of your journey.
I really appreciate the opportunity. I mean, I love what you're doing with the community, the interfaith aspect, and the fact of interfaith and Swedenborg and online all kind of coalescing right in this Venn diagram. Just it's the sweet spot for me, and it was just when I first discovered the community, it's like, oh, this is great. This is somewhere I can feel comfortable, and then just participating in the videos and watching the videos, and I was like, I love what's happening and would love to be a part of it in any way possible. So I appreciate the opportunity.
That's inspiring to hear, Michael. Thank you. I'm glad that we could connect with you and that you're feeling at home in this kind of worldwide online community. And speaking of online community, it sounds like you have a little bit of background in kind of similar fields. Tell us about your work and what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I work for a tech startup now, a software startup, and we're a fully remote company. So I've got a lot of experience interacting just with my team. So I directly manage 2 teams, and then we have multiple teams across the company that I work with, and so we interact on a daily basis through video, through Slack. We use chat, a lot. My 2 of my direct reports, one of them is currently in Mexico, the other lives in Barcelona. So so we're separated, but we're super close, and it's just a testament to how deeply you can create a relationship with groups of people and sense of community online. That you can do that now. And my previous work before this was with a Jewish nonprofit organization that I co-founded in Atlanta, and that was focused online. That's what we were. We started doing YouTube videos with the Torah portion of the week and turned that into a blog and a website, and turned around 2-3 months after really kind of making an effort to make this run, and all of a sudden we had a board of directors, we had investors, we had a budget that we could pay salaries, we had our 501c3, and things just fell into place by building a community online where people could participate. So when I saw that this had been running with, from a Swedenborgian aspect, especially with the interfaith piece, which is for me always been a personal, I don't want to say challenge, but it's been something I'm very sensitive to, as somebody who has experience in multiple faith backgrounds just within my own family. It's like organizations or groups or communities that respect other viewpoints and then still have a clear foundation in somebody as, I would say, as cool and awesome as Swedenborg and his writings. It's refreshing,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so your family is diverse, and so you want to have a spirituality that supports your growth and inspires you, but also isn't condemning of other people, and maybe is even more proactive in saying, you know what, God connects with all of you. That's really cool.
Yeah, affirming is a great word, and I hear you use that word all the time. Affirming, and it's so refreshing and positive. I mean, my family is very diverse. So my father is Muslim. My mother is raised Catholic. I have Jewish ancestry. So we've got the three Abrahamic religions right there in one family, right? My wife is a humanist, a Jewish person, and I felt since a child, like, when you're exposed to all these different things and good people on all sides, it's so hard to be, judgmental and say, well, I love you, Dad, but you're going to hell. Or, I love you, Mom, but and it's wild. And I think at a young age, I really started saying, well, that part doesn't ring true to me, that you can kind of cut, these people out of there. And so there must be something else. And over the years that I discovered Swedenborg and his writings and the ideas behind his writings, and being able to say, there's an essential kind of that perennial philosophy, right? Or that golden thread, as I think V. Griffiths called it, just this essence or ground of being that runs through all spiritualities that we have in common. And the way that Swedenborg articulated and described and cataloged that has been, it's like seeing this perennial philosophy underlying all these different threads, all these different faith traditions, that was just so clearly explained and promoted by Swedenborg that I haven't found anything else. I can read Buddhism, I can read Jewish books, the Torah, the Talmud. I could read other Christianity books, and I can see in all these things, Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita, and see in all these things kind of this connective thread, that all this shares this ground that it seems like Swedenborg had really well covered. So, and that was a monologue. Sorry about that.
No, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing. Honestly, that's inspiring, and I'm curious about your journey with Swedenborg's theology. For those of you who don't know, it's open, mystical Christian theology, where at least Swedenborg believed, and many of the people who are inspired by his thought believe, there are many paths to heaven, many ways to connect with God, even using different names, through goodness, through love, through wisdom. And I'm curious about you, Michael, how your journey has been with Swedenborg, how that started.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day as I was kind of getting ready to talk. And I realized I first read Swedenborg probably when I was in my early 20s. So that, probably back in early 2001, 2002. I was working for the Theosophical Society in Illinois in their bookstore, and that was just like a treasure trove. I mean, there's just thousands of books on every religion and religious philosophy that you could think of, all in one place. And that's where I discovered Swedenborg's writings. I was a big fan, and it's a little silly, but big fan of the Disney cartoon about Johnny Appleseed. I've always really liked Johnny Appleseed.
Oh, nice.
And so I remember,
origin.
right? I know. I'll thank Johnny Appleseed for planting that seed. And found out, he was into, he was a Swedenborgian, and so I was like, oh, cool, I want to check this out. And I bought Heaven and Hell, and I was starting to read it, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here. I can't, I could get, maybe, a third or a quarter of what I was reading. And I put it down for a while, and every once in a while, every few years, I'd kind of check back in, and I was kind of lamenting that there was no resource, nothing to help me kind of unpack that. And I remember 3 years ago finding almost 4 years ago, finding the Off the Left Eye YouTube channel from the Swedenborg Foundation. And I was like just feasting on these videos for weeks and weeks. And just finally, I so much, credit to them to find out, I understand this now. Wow, correspondences, that's what that means. This is what he was talking about. And then finding this community and just watching just devouring all this content that I could find. and realizing like this is a crystal clear lens that I can use to really put these different religious philosophies into focus.
Oh, amazing.
That's my kind of Swedenborg story.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, it's amazing that you were inspired by Johnny Appleseed to learn more about Swedenborgianism, and then that took you on this journey. And you're right, Swedenborg's books are often hard to digest. And I don't know if you know this, I've been working with the foundation on their board about the last 5 years, the producers of Off the Left Eye, etc. And I remember thinking kind of similarly, like I wish there were better, content delivery systems, like videos or what have you, than what we have when I first found Swedenborg. Because on YouTube there was just one video of it was like a documentary about Swedenborg's life, and it's just like seemed so stagnant, and it was only just the one thing and then maybe one or two others. And what did it feel like when you found all that like beautiful exposition and thought on Off the Left Eye, and how did that end up translating to your life and your walk?
Well, that's a great question, and I mean, really, it was literally that covering, right? I was like, wow, like I can understand these things now, and how the biggest question for me was always, how is this applicable to my life, to my walk, to my faith, to my practice, right? Like, how do I make these? This is cool, like intellectually. What does it mean? What does it mean for me in a realistic sense, in a practical way? And I think what the materials like Off the Left Eye and things, it was able to, everybody, really makes an effort to explain what these things mean and what they mean to you. And what has meant the most to me is that those videos, this community's videos, content is always affirming and open and accepting, and never, you need to do this way, or you need to be this way, or you're bad, or you're going to hell, or your spiritual practices aren't valid. It's always affirming and positive. And I remember two things specifically. I remember after watching a few videos and just being blown away and just excited. And I emailed, I had no idea, details about the foundation or how big. I remembered my days of when I was working on our nonprofit, and it was literally me and my co-founder just producing YouTube videos, 5 videos a week to be able to schedule out, and me personally learning, how do I edit videos? How do I do special effects? How do I do VO? How do I produce these? And figuring out the technology myself.
I'm going through that right now.
I'm kind of a nerd about that. I love to figure that stuff out myself. And I emailed the feedback email, and Curtis Childs replied, and he's like, "Hey, great! I'm so excited that you love the videos." I emailed him like, "Hey, can I help? What can I do?" Like, trying to volunteer, and he's like, "Yeah, no, we've got like editing." I didn't realize the scope of the resources that the Swedenborg Foundation had. I kind of felt silly. It's like emailing like Disney, like, "Hey, can I help you edit your movies?" I don't know, but
yeah, it's hard to see how great that team is. I mean, you can see the final product, and they include a lot of them more and more, which is cool. Like actually in the videos, but they have such an awesome team over at Off the Left Eye. Yeah,
it's neat to see just the evolution of the production value grow over the last 3-4 years that that I've been watching that. So that was a moving moment when I realized, wow, this is a lot bigger than I thought, and the value is just super amazing. And the other thing is, as I said, how affirming. I remember specifically when I had commented on a video, somebody on the team there had, and maybe it was Curtis who mentioned in a video a quote, and the quote that literally opened kind of my heart, I guess, to say, this is something I want to participate in, was from Divine Providence. You mind if I read it?
Please.
I had it queued up here ready. I made my notes before I talk. But this is the quote that that made me feel that even though I don't know that I would call myself a Christian, I could call myself a Swedenborgian, I think. But the quote from Divine Providence was, in the spiritual world where we all arrive after death, no one asks what our faith has been or what our beliefs have been, only what our life has been, whether we are one kind of person or another. They know that the quality of our faith and the quality of our beliefs depend on the quality of our life, because life constructs a belief system for itself and constructs a faith for itself. And that's me. That's what I believe. It's not important, those trappings aren't important. What counts, and what I've loved about Swedenborg is it's not a deeply studying different Hindu practices, meditation methods, and all these things where you sit down and you do this breathing method and you do this vision, visualization technique, and all of these techniques and schedules and plans and things that you have to do to be able to attain enlightenment or see God and all these things. And Swedenborg's like, be a cool dude. He's like, help people, love each other, be good. That's the practice. The practice is be a good person and be kind, be helpful, be of service. Like, how much more simple or complicated at the same time can you get,
Yeah, and that's a great point. That's the core of the approach, and it is simple, and it also calls on a lot of transformation often. And you can include, of course, this, including some of those practices that we've picked up, including from Hinduism, maybe even those ideas can empower us even further, especially once our heart starts reorienting itself towards love. I at least often find those practices help me become more present, find new ways to live out that love. But without Swedenborg in my life too, I think, or at least the inspiration of God through Swedenborg's writings and through my experience pointing to that core of theology, I don't know if I would find much of a place for any of those practices that help me so much now.
Yeah, I agree. It's the way that it aligns with the core of the goodness, right? The good, like what I would say is the gospel, right? The good message of everything, which is to be a good person, to be kind and care and be of service and love your fellows and find ways to help rather than tear down, to build up rather than tear down. And the concepts of Swedenborg that he's put together have just clicked for me, even just studying the last few weeks in my reading and doing a lot of just the parallels are incredible to me. The concept, Swedenborg's concept of our loves, right? Our loves, is that right? Like our is that the right phrase? Like our true loves or
our loves,
and sometimes they can be, quote unquote, love towards hurtful things, or kind of what motivates us, right?
Right, and how that aligns so strongly with an understanding of karma in Eastern religions, where we're looking at karma's not I'm going to be mean, I'm going to punch you, and so you're going to punch me back. It's more of how are we seeding the causes and reaping the effects, and how my love may be selfish, and so I'm going to live a selfish life. I'm going to get the selfish effects from that. Or if I live a good life and a helpful life, I'm planting these seeds, this karma, and I get this goodness back because I put this goodness out. And that's what my love is focused on. These things. My love is how I center myself and the things that I'm focused on. If I'm thinking about being of service, I will find opportunities to serve, and that will make me feel better as a person, and I'll reap the effects of being a positive influence in my environment. Whereas in the negative sense, if I'm an angry person and my love is being angry, or getting hurt or being, victimized, and I put that out into the world, that's the karma that I'm setting for myself. Those are the effects that I'm planting for myself. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that is, and wonderfully put. And I love what you said about how that connects to the core gospel message. And often I find that it's true with Swedenborg, that really he's distilling kind of the heart of Christianity, of Judaism, maybe of many traditions, when he emphasizes that kind of openness of love. And as we have seen in many traditions as well, we can take a gospel of love and we can turn it to our hurtful purposes. And you made the point about how we often, especially in the Christian West, condemn other people of other faith traditions, and we can turn away from that core message of Christ's openness and love, of support for other people, of transforming our lives towards love, and instead kind of talk a good game around that, but really emphasize, our religion is right, and my faith saves me, your faith condemns you, which is not the same thing. And so thank you so much, Michael, for exploring that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And what you're saying there too reminds, this is having the opportunity to study so many different religions and religious practices. It's not just I've learned Western Christianity that does that. Everyone does that. Everyone literally, if you don't follow this guru, you're doing it wrong. Or, if you do this kind of meditation instead of this kind of meditation, well, you're not going to get the effects that you should, you know what I mean? Yeah. Or you're a Reformed Jew instead of an Orthodox Jew, you're doing it wrong. It's like, those are classifications that can be useful, but also can really be divisive across every aspect, every religious tradition. And so Swedenborg's helped me to kind of step back from that, from all spaces, to be able to have an open mind and open sight, and realize that none of that's important. All that's really important is how I can open up to the good of the Lord to flow through me as an instrument, and to be placed and to do those things that I'm led to do through power other than mine. Because I know very well in my life that I could try to be a good person, but what is it? All goodness comes from the Lord. There's nothing from me that's good. It works through me, and being able to be open and to be able to allow that to flow through is really important. Outside of that, there's nothing we can do, I think.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. I love that you said it doesn't really matter, and even like me, and each of us in this interfaith Swedenborgian community, we connect like that in our own ways of being selfish, my way or the highway in certain circumstances, jealousy, when we get caught up in our anger and fear. And yeah, it's one thing to discern and say, okay, I think this is healthier, this is less healthy. It's another thing to kind of center on that and allow it to transcend or descend into hurtful judgment and condemnation of all these different sorts, as you described. I'm curious about your work with your startup. So it sounds like you were one of the first people in this startup from the get-go, and you were telling me that you've grown quite a bit, and I'm curious about what your role is now and what that journey's been like. Yeah,
so you're right. I began, with just the founders on the team. It was really small, four people in total. Already having a bunch of a really great collection of customers. And then over the last 4 years, seeing that just grow. So being remote, we don't get to be in person a lot. We do twice a year get-togethers as a company, and we just did one last week in Miami. And seeing from the first one where we had 6 people, and to this one where we had 26 people, and it's just where before we had couple rooms in an Airbnb, and now we're renting out a whole kind of flat at on the beach, which was pretty great. And just seeing everything expand it's really an amazing opportunity to help with that growth. But what means most to me in my role is I oversee a few teams, a customer success team, so helping our customers, a marketing team, which tells people about what we do and gets people interested in what we do. And then since I've been kind of around since the beginning, doing a lot of operational pieces, helping figure out how can we do this better, where can we tighten up our processes, how do we do these things. And I remember when I first started, the conversation I had with my daughter. She's 12 now, but that was 4 years ago. So she was 7, 8 when I started, and she's like, "What do you do all day upstairs in the office at home?" And I'm trying to figure out, how do I explain? Well, I help customers who have questions about event marketing software, how to build event websites and registration forms, and I have to answer their tickets, and they send in support tickets, and I have to stop whatever I'm doing and answer their questions and get frustrated because they don't know what they're doing. And so I'm thinking, how do I explain this to an 8-year-old, right? And the simplest explanation that I could think of that made the most sense, and not to talk down to her, right, but to really kind of help her understand, in essence, what I do was people need help and they ask me for it. And I realized after I told her that, I shared that with some of the team. And as we've grown out the teams and hired people, it's important to find people that fit with that. And I realized that what more honorable position could there be in the entire world than to be the person that someone asks for help? And being a parent has really helped me think about this too. My daughter, she's 12, and I have a son who's 5. Just thinking about how hard it is for, I wouldn't say many, I'd say most people, to ask for help. Like, how humbling is it to have to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help from somebody. Can you please help me? And how honorable it is to be the person that gets to help. It's not, I have to answer their questions. It's, I get to help these people. I get the honorable position to be the one that someone has to humble themselves to, and I can be humble as well and approach them in a way that's helpful.
That's beautiful.
And it just kind of reframed everything that I thought about support. I was in marketing forever, and I thought, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go to the startup and go back and answer support tickets. I've done that. I did my time. I'm done with that. But understanding it that way was just an amazing opportunity for me to really see how service is everywhere, and there are always ways to be of service. And now, as I've moved out of the day-to-day support, and we have a team of people that do that, being able to see how I can be of service. It's a vocation. It's literally turning, a job into a vocation. And Swedenborg's writings have helped me really see that clearly. Like, it's being able to look for the opportunities to be of service to my coworkers, employees, partners, owners, customers, family. It's like a life of service it's available anywhere at any time. We just have to have the eyes to see it.
That's beautiful. That life of service that you talk about. It's something to lean into for each of us in our work and in our walk. And It's funny you mentioned, you know, being there when people need help, and often I'm in a position like that with the Church of the Good Shepherd and with the online community, and it is humbling to be in that position of asking for help, as well as to be in a position where you at least try to support someone, and especially with the online community, often that's via email or what have you. And what would you say, you know, really allowed you to find such graciousness in that? It sounds like that's been part of your journey with God and in life, just an opening, like a flowering to enjoying the opportunity to help. And often, as you, I think you alluded to, we can kind of get in a space of, you know, it's too much, or you know, it can get annoying, especially if you're telling people to, you know, turn off their computer, turn it back on, or what have you. I don't know what kind of work. Yeah, we all go through that kind of thing, especially with, you know, people in our lives who don't have tech savvy, but some people do that every day still. So what would you say to people who are doing jobs that are helping people but may seem mundane to them? I don't know if we can inspire a meditative approach or what have you. What would you
I think
say?
that's a great question, because we talked to our team. For me, and for, you know, our founder, culture of our company is so important. And as a remote company, you don't have the opportunities to create, you know, culture in the same way you do as having 30 people in an office. You know, you have to work for this. And it's a lot of work to make sure that our teams are all aligned as well. You know, that they understand, here's what we do, here's why we do it, and that from the top down, from every corner of the company, everyone has everyone's back. We support each other, and we're all growing together. So I think just for me, what's worked for me, and what seems to work for the team, for my team, and what seems, I think, is universally applicable. Maybe, I don't know. I can't talk for everybody. Is the things that I keep in mind every day when talking to people. It's being humble. I'm special, but I'm not special. Everyone's special. That doesn't mean no one's special.
Nice.
Just everyone's special differently.
Yeah.
And having empathy. I mean, it's just like you said, we all get into those times when we all have to turn our computer off and turn it back on again. You know, putting yourself in those shoes, understanding from what, you know, from the work side, understanding what my customers have to go through.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I get it. Like, I get confused sometimes too. But what are the most important things are being helpful, being human, being a human being, shared experience. I also have those things that happen to me too. And having empathy and understanding, putting myself in those shoes. And most importantly, I think it's being humble and being kind. I have my coffee cup that I have every day right next to me.
Oh, nice.
It's being kind. Like, how would you want someone to talk to you? You know, if you had a question that turned out to be kind of a dumb question, like it was right in front of your face, do you want someone to be like, hey, you dummy, why didn't you do it this way? Oh, it's right there. Didn't you read the instructions? You could say it that way, but I think, you know, for this, I'll defer to the Buddha, who said, you know, those three things, the three gates that all of our words should pass through. Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it helpful? Is it useful?
Yeah.
So is it useful, necessary, and kind? If it's not, then don't say it, or find a different way to say it. You know.
Well put. It's funny you mentioned Buddha right then, because I was
Thinking about Pema
Chodron, the famous Buddhist speaker, and I was listening to her right before we started chatting, and you know, she was sharing something similar. At least it applies in the sense that we should think of everyone as and feel as though they're extensions of ourselves, in a sense that, you know, we start breaking down the barriers of difference, and you know, we start off kind of frozen into like meism, you know, selfishness, and the process of life, from her perspective, is to melt, you know. And I thought that was well put too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's like it just and there was a video, an Off the Left Side video, not too long ago, that talked about the heaven that's inside of us all. You know, that we all have this aspect of heaven in us. That we share this with each other, and that just makes me think of, you know, in Buddhism with the Lotus Sutra, that, you know, we all have this aspect of the Buddhahood in us, of the enlightenment, that's the possibility of positivity that lives in all of us. And if we can see that, and if we can remember that, even with the most unpleasant people, we can be gracious, we can be humble and kind. We don't have to be carpets to be walked over, but we can still be gracious, and we can understand. And, you know, this is something I love to talk about to the people that I work with too. It's that all that we can control, and this is something that I've read a lot of, you know, with Marcus Aurelius, the Stoics. I love the Stoic philosophy and how it fits in there, but we can control what we can control, and anything outside of that we have no control over. So why worry? Why worry about it? All I can control is how I react. You know, I can't control someone else's reaction. So if we have an angry person, an angry customer that's furious about something, would I be justified in responding with anger? I mean, I think you could argue yes. You could argue yes, I could be. But what's the benefit in that? There's zero benefit in that. I can reply and respond from a place of empathy, from a place of helpfulness, from a place of graciousness or kindness. And all that is a reflection on me for myself. And it's not a reflection on them, because all I can worry about is what I do. And at the end of the day, I would rather know that I was as kind, as helpful and positive as I could be, regardless of the way someone interacts with me. It's not going to affect me if someone is reacting poorly. What's going to affect me is how I react and how I can act, and that's the only control that I have over it. And even then, it's right. All good things come from the Lord. It's like, okay, I'm going to be cool. I'm going to let go. And this is where I think, you know, a lot of, like you were saying before, it's a perfect example of, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh, and like checking in with your breath and your body, and the benefits of mindfulness and meditation. I think the biggest thing that meditation has ever done for me is allow me to take a step. It gives you that pause between reacting with an emotion and seeing that this emotion's coming. So I have that half a second, 2 seconds to say, ooh, hold on. I'm really mad here. So I'm going to wait a second. I can see this is an emotion. I can understand this emotion. I can embrace this emotion and say it's okay to feel angry. And now I can let it go. And now I can come back and say, what's the goodness that I can provide here? Now I have that brief instant to say, what can I open up and let flow, you know, from the Lord, right? Let this flow and be used and use myself, or be used as an instrument of positivity, and have, you know, the prayer that I pray that the Lord puts me where I'm most useful, and maybe that's now, and maybe that's here, and how can I be of best use, and to let that go. So,
well, that's the crux of it. No pun intended. It would be a bad one anyway. That God is the source of that divine goodness flowing through in a finite way in our lives, and how powerful is it to be able to accept that, you know, the structures in my life are working to some extent. My body's working, my mind, and I can lean into that goodness, especially when I am mindful, especially when I acknowledge that it's not really from me, because often our ego can become attached to it. And that awareness of emotion, and what you were saying about taking a few seconds to react and be, or not react, but kind of be aware of how we feel, and react differently than we might have if we just kind of identified entirely with the emotions. So becoming more of a watcher of our thinking mind as well as our feeling mind can enable, more intelligence in how we approach our lives, how we approach our inner life, and as you were saying, more health in how we react and carry those emotions forward, and instead of reacting in such anger and mindlessness, in a sense, we can receive more kindness and love. Yeah, that's our challenge. Yeah.
Temper growing up, just absolute terrible temper. I mean, talking with my wife about this the other day, and I get upset. I can get upset very easily, but now I can get upset and then drop it. Whereas before I'd get upset and that would be, I'd get upset and that would be this black cloud hanging over me for weeks, and learning and being able to open up to those, to let that go. You're right. I mean, it's so tied to the ego, to this selfish love, loving, this love of feeling of righteousness, of feeling, I have a right to be angry and I'm justified, and how could they do this to me? And it's all ego. It's all the supposed importance of myself above anyone else. And that's where we can melt, like you said, melt that away, melt that negativity away, and just allow for the opportunity to bring that positivity. And it makes me think of the concept of well, I gotta say it because I said I would say correspondences, just the idea of correspondence that Swedenborg has talked about is my life. I mean, understanding that, it's like since I've been little, there is a secret language to everything. There is something, everything means something else, and just the depth of meaning that has been unlocked by understanding that there is a thing called correspondences, and what that can mean is just, and that's what's really, I think, for me, unlocked this interfaith idea, just being able to see that in all things.
Tell us more about correspondences from your perspective.
I mean, to realize, the main thing for me was realizing my struggles with, let's say, with the Bible, saying, how could this really mean what it says? And if so, why doesn't it get practiced the way that it says it should get practiced? And what is how are these disparate things supposed to fit together? And just saying, this all means something else, and this means something that has a direct, deep, and urgent applicability to my daily life. This is not just a story of some, in the Bible story of some people fighting about something. It's whoa, this is a story about me and about you and about everybody else we see out there, and how life, can be better. And then being able to see with the idea that things mean other things, and how they can mean other things, representational, being able to see, okay, so regeneration means one thing in Swedenborg. Correspondentially, is that a word? Correspondentially?
I think so.
Maybe. Correspondentially, regeneration reminds me or reflects, or I see that reflected in, a lot of the concept of enlightenment, and living in, having access, living in heaven now. Heaven is a state of mind. Heaven is how we live. It's not a place where we go. It's that heaven within us. Being able to share that, express that, bring that to the world, is really corresponds to me, and maybe not in a strict Swedenborgian kind of definition, but corresponds to, the idea of the Bodhisattva in Buddhism, that we are people that have goodness, that are regenerating ourselves, not for the benefit of ourselves, but for the benefit of every other single human being in the universe. That we are doing this in order to bring goodness to everyone. And we're not done until everyone can experience that. And that idea of doing that not through our own power, but through the power of, what's above us, and uncovering, melting that nastiness around us to uncover the goodness in ourselves, and using that kind of being a superhero for God, I guess. I don't know, a worker, like a person that's out there to enlighten everyone else and try to help other people. And it's not, doing that is not, here's the way that you need to believe and practice. Doing that is, I love you. I want to be kind to you. And that's going to make you want to love and be kind to other people.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a type of superheroism we can all strive to live up to, I think. Wow. Yeah, and I appreciate what you said about these deep connection between the different ideas, and even like someone who approaches life quote unquote scientifically. I know there are a few of those types of people who view science as kind of like the science of love, which is what someone called Christianity recently.
I'm forgetting the source. Maybe it was Helen Keller. But like the science
Of approaching life in healthier and healthier ways involves like looking at our own lives and saying, okay, these things are working, these things aren't, and so how can I grow and bloom? And that's kind of more like the Swedenborgian Swedenborg's use of the word correspondence is like, look at how this happens in your heart, and then look at how this happens in a physical way. Like here's a flower blooming, and here's a tree growing, and as you said, like here's a story about all these people maybe working together or arguing, but the way it unfolds is very kind of mental. It's spiritual. That's what makes it scripture to him. And you're right. Like when I was finding that in the Bible stories, thanks to Swedenborg's writings, kind of exploring how that works, it kind of blew my mind, because I was like, this is real. Like, learning about this symbolism and revelation, it's connecting to all these books of the Bible that I heard about growing up. And how could they be so interconnected, and how could they be so meaningful to my life? I always thought it was a dead book, and that can be really powerful and illuminating, enlightening, and as you said. Wow. So Swedenborgianism and your walk has kind of renewed or fostered a connection with the Bible for you in a way that maybe you didn't have before, and with God in your journey, and how has that been in your familial life with your parents and others who do not necessarily share your label, but maybe share your heart in a sense?
That's a good question. I think for my family, what's always been most important is, I guess, is what Swedenborg teaches, is how we treat other people. How we live in the world and be good and be kind. So labels, coming from a family with so many labels, labels they're not always that important. I think with my family, my wife would definitely call herself a humanist, and my kids, the message is really about how to live and be good people. There's no question around that. And outside of that, it's kind of like, I've always been a seeker. I've always been reading and learning and trying, almost like you say, like scientifically, like, okay, great. So I want to try this and see if this works. See if this is what works, what's right, what opens that up, makes it easier to live and as a kind, good, hearted person. Swedenborg has certainly has been a key to unlock all of that in my life. Outside of that, what we call ourselves and what you believe is not as important as the life that you live and the people that you help.
Yeah, beautifully put. I think that will speak to a lot of folks listening, no matter their faith tradition. And sometimes we critique ideas and like Protestant Christianity around faith alone saves, but I think and we can critique other religions for their limitations and our own as well, I hope. But what's striking me right now is what you said earlier, which is, this is, there's goodness in discernment and seeing what works and what seems to hurt people, but really, like, what's important is that core of love. And so not the difference in labels, it's about how you live your life, is what you just said. And it's interesting because we can get caught up in, well, if you live your life in that way, you could be faking it, or maybe your heart's not in the right place. But really, like, living your life in the way that I hear you say it is not just about how you act, it's how you're living within and seeing what really uplifts you and uplifts other people. And that's powerful stuff.
It's your love, right? It's your true love. You can't, and I think Swedenborg says this all the time. I may be wrong. But I've picked up, certainly, I haven't read everything. I have my Swedenborg library right here next to me at my desk. Every day I look over and I see all the books. Right under my Buddha statue.
Nice. They called Swedenborg the Buddha of the North. D.T. Suzuki did, yeah.
Oh, man. I love it. I love it. I believe, what he said is that, you can say, you believe something and you do something, but if you're not doing it for the right reasons, it doesn't matter. It's not being done. It's not being done right. And in that love of, like, just understanding and wanting to be doing things for the right reason from the right place, and not taking credit for it.
Yeah, pointing up. Even if it's just within, I find it makes it easier to take compliments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks. Humble, stay humble.
Well, so I'm curious, not to change gears entirely here. I think it does relate, but I'm curious about your offer before we started chatting to at least in the recorded section to help out with the online community, because I'm a half-time minister with the online community. We have limited funds. Any donation, folks, goes a long way. And so we would love to have more connected support. I know there are a lot of people in connection with this community who have skills in so many different amazing places. And you clearly have maybe more than most, like, direct experience with the crux or a part of what we try to do here, which is make a community online. And where have you seen things work for your work that may translate to us, if you think about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, virtual community building, it's tough, but I think so. Looking at online communities, getting people to the same place is tough. Using the same platform. Facebook used to be the way to go, and people are kind of leaving that platform a little bit. It's hard to do full-time community building and getting resources that are directly in there. Like I said, for my company, building a culture, it's building a community of people with shared values, right? And doing it virtually, it's not the same as doing it in person, where you can just kind of get together and chat. I've really found that being able to build that, it takes some effort. It takes creating the opportunities, for those things to happen. You kind of almost have to force those things. You kind of have to till the soil and get things ready. Whereas in person, you can just kind of bring people together and let it form with minimal guidance. And virtually, you really have to think out in detail. Here's all of the the boundaries, here are the things, here's the resources, the tools we have, here's how we're going to try to get the people engaged. Is it activities, questions, opportunities for interacting with each other. What are the easiest ways to get people talking with each other? And that really, communication builds community. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. It takes a lot more intentionality with online community to really foster that space, and it's hard, especially if you're on multiple platforms and people are connecting, 8 different ways with similar content, the same content, but we're not all on XYZ at the same time, and that's something I want to keep working towards. I hope to start doing a little bit more of that on YouTube going forward, where we have like premieres set where we're more likely to chat, because I know that's something Off the Left Eye often uses and others, but for us, especially since we try to put out our Sunday message like right after it's done and things like that, and we like the live format, it's hard to get the edits and all those things that I would like with the YouTube videos in like right then. But it's something I want to work towards, because I know that that platform works. And but even then, it's like people are connecting through Facebook, through Instagram, through email, through our website. And when you have people in a room, it kind of just clicks often. So there's some challenges there.
Yeah, I'd love to help however I can.
Well, thank you for that willingness and that show of support. And I wanted to say earlier, it was so cool of you to reach out to Off the Left Eye and be like, man, how can I help? And they're like, oh, we got a team. I don't know if they'd say that now.
They're editing. We don't need you to do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I know they're always looking for support, but we definitely could use it. So let's keep connecting about that. And to the rest of you as well, share your stories with me. And if you ever want to come onto the show and be as inspiring as Michael, I think that might be hard to do, because I found this really inspiring, but I think we all have that beautiful, deep, profound story to share, and I'd love to be someone to help you share that with other people, and thanks, Michael, for doing that today.
Thank you, Corey. Appreciate it.
Well, with that, folks, we are coming to an end. Please be sure to subscribe, to follow us wherever you find us. We're on all your major podcasting platforms, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, even on Twitter a little bit, I think. And we can also be found at Swedenborgiancommunity.org. We're always looking for ways to connect further, so share your feedback, share your thoughts, and go forth knowing you're quite loved. Bye, folks.